In this clip, we'll learn how Substance Painter's material system works and how the layers we create contribute to those materials. All right, great. So this is going to be your Module 3 Begin file. You can find this in your exercise files, and this is going to be exactly where we left off at the end of the last module. If you want to open this file up and follow along with me from this point, it's there for you. So I still have my body texture set selected. You can see the layers we created at the end of the last module to fix those normal map issues and ambient occlusion map issues for the eyes. Let's jump over here to the texture set list and select the hair texture set. Okay. Now if I go back over to my layers palette here, you'll notice that the layers are different. So it's important to understand that each texture set has its own unique layer stack. Now, before we jump in and go any further, I want to show you an image, and this is actually in your exercise files. Let me come over here and pull this up. This is the concept art for this character that was created by artist David Kegg. Now, this is going to be my roadmap for our textures as we progress through the remainder of this course. This is what I'm going to look to when I have questions like, what color is our character's shirt? Or what type of metal is used on this piece of armor? This is my roadmap, and I typically will pull this up and put it on another screen while I work and create textures. I would encourage you to do the same thing. Let me go ahead and minimize it for right now, though. Now, when we're working in Substance Painter is creating sort of a material in the background based on all the different data we're giving it. And right now you can see both in my 2D and 3D viewports, it has the word material in the top left-hand corner. This is what we're previewing at this time. Now I want to come over to my texture set settings panel and remind you that this particular project consists of a number of channels, and each texture set has its own copy of these channels. In the case of our project, we're using the PBR roughness metallic workflow, and this is going to include base color, height, roughness, metallic, and normal channels. Now we can preview the contents of each one of these channels inside of our viewports and the channel contributions to these channels there. We can do that simply by tapping the C key on our keyboard. You can see as soon as I do that, we've got this checkerboard pattern, but what we're looking at here now is just the base color channel and the contribution of our layer stack or our layers panel to this channel. We haven't painted anything yet, so that's why we're getting transparency. If I tap C again, we're going to look at the height channel. And you can see how this works. Now, if I continue to tap C, we're going to cycle down the list of channels, and I'll stop right there because there's something worth noting here on the normal channel. You can see in this channel, we have some information for the body texture set. Now, this is not the entirety of the asset, it's just one of our texture sets. But if you remember, we actually did some patching on this texture set, and we created a fill layer using our normal map data at the end of the last module. The baked normal map, that is. This is why we can see normal maps for the body texture set and not for the other texture sets. Now, if I tap C again, you'll see this particular preview, which is a combination of the painted normal maps, the baked normal maps, and the height map. Let's tap C again, go back to the top of the list, and then we can tap the M key to go back to our material preview. Now, just as we previewed all the channels, we can also preview all of our additional maps right over here. Now, you do that with your B key. So if I tap the B key, we can preview the baked normal, the baked world space normal, the baked ID if we had it. And if we look over here, you can see there's not even an ID map connected here. That's okay. We don't need that. The ambient occlusion, and so on and so forth. We can continue to cycle through this list. And again, when we're done, we can tap the M key to go back to our material preview. These are handy keyboard shortcuts to remember in case you want a closer examination of any of your baked maps, or if you want to see a specific channel without the influence of lighting. Remember, we have lighting going on here. If we shift right click, we can spin our high dynamic range dome and we can move that lighting around. But sometimes it's beneficial to be able to see what you've painted without the influence of lighting. All right, great. let's jump back over here to our properties panel, and let's jump over to our layers panel right over here. Now, I'm going to come in here and start this off by saying it's a good idea to be extremely organized when it comes to your layers. I can't tell you how many artists I've seen that just paint layers willy-nilly, and then they go to make changes to something and they can't remember where that layer is. I don't like that. I like to be very organized with my layers. So what I like to do, if I came over here and hid my body and clothing texture sets, I like to examine the objects we're going to paint on a texture set and break it down into areas. So we have hair on this texture set, and then we have this wrap right down here. Now the hair is all going to look relatively close to the same, but the wrap is going to look very different. So I'm going to separate those two areas using layer groups, and that's right here. So let me add in a couple of those folders right there, and we can double click to rename them. We'll call this beard wrap, and I'll name this one hair. Now at this point, we could take this layer here and we could begin to paint texture on this. Now this is a paint layer. We could take color information and paint it right on top of this layer. Now, in my opinion, that's a perfectly acceptable way to work, but not necessarily the most efficient if you think there might be changes that need to be made to the paint that you apply. Let me give you an example. Let's say that we painted all of the hair on this layer, and we painted red hair for our dwarf. Then after the fact, maybe our creative director came in and said, okay, we've made a decision. He's now going to have blonde hair. Can you change that? Well, that's going to mean completely repainting this layer. There's a better way to work, in my opinion, and that is through fill layers and masks. Let's go ahead and create a fill layer for the beard wrap. I'll come up here and just simply tap on the fill layer button. It's the one with the paint bucket. And we'll grab this fill layer and I'm going to put it in my beard wrap layer group. You'll know it's there because the icon next to the group changes and you can now tap that and collapse the group. So with this fill layer created, we can actually come and delete this layer using that trash can button. And let's jump over here and look at the properties panel. Now, underneath material, you're going to see the different channels that this layer is contributing to. It's contributing to all the channels at once right now. We can control that. Let's say for the hair, we're not going to paint any additional height or normal detail. All we need to do here is come in and simply check those two buttons, and some of the parameters get removed from the material rollout for them. This is perfectly acceptable. At this point, we could come in here and let's say we want our beard wrap to be kind of a dirty cloth. So I can come in here and select this color here. Now this color picker will come up, and depending on your resolution, it could be kind of small, so you can resize this. But I'm going to come in here and we're going to choose kind of a dirty yellow color. Now I like to work from dark to light, generally speaking, meaning the darkest value and then layer lighter values on top of it with additional layers. But we can come in here and start with maybe a color sort of like this. This should work fine. Maybe even a little lighter. There we go. Okay. It's a little bit shiny here, so we can come over and adjust our roughness by taking this little tick and moving it a little closer to white, sort of like that. And now you can see, I want a little more warmth in that. So we'll come over to our hue slider and slide that into the more of a warm color. Maybe this could go just a bit darker. Okay, fantastic. So notice here that this color is taking up the entirety of our texture set. This is completely normal. We need to limit how this color can be applied using a mask. We created a couple of those in the previous module, but I'm going to come up here and do this at the layer group level. Let's come in and create a black mask. We'll create a mask by tapping this button and choosing Add Black Mask. So if I add the black mask, you'll see that my color gets completely hidden. And now we can either select the layer group or the mask itself. Let's select the mask, and again, we're going to use the polygon fill tool here. We'll come over and choose a UV chunk fill or shell fill, and we're going to fill it with a white value to reveal this color for the wrap. That's going to be this shell right here. And there we go. Come in and select our paintbrush, and you can see we now have kind of this brownish color that's being applied only to our beard wrap. Perfect. Now again, I'm really big on layer organization and management, so let's come in here and rename this fill layer to something like base. And then I'm going to create 2 additional fill layers on top of it. 1, 2. We're going to call this one edgeware. And then we're going to call this one dirt. Now, again, we've filled our entire asset with white here because of these layers, or this gray color. So for both of these, let's go ahead and add a black mask, just like so. All right, great. So now these 2 masks are ready for paint that's going to reveal the color that's going to be underneath. Let's go ahead and move on to our next clip and do just that.